Okay.
Corbin and Carriere grind remorselessly onwards. With victory secured, the course record becomes their target. After a record 13 hours and 58 minutes and an estimated 55,000 paddle strokes, they become the first team to complete the course in under 14 hours. Second place goes to Toronjo and Kolka, 10 minutes behind. It's the Canadians' second successive win, and Corbin ties the record at 9 victories in the Ausable, North America's most grueling canoe marathon.
Okay, welcome to episode 4 of Smitty's Endurance Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Smith. I'd like to welcome onto the show today Solomon Carriere. Solomon is a 63-year-old marathon canoe racer from Saskatchewan. He has won many races throughout his career, the Ausable River Canoe Marathon 3 times, where he still holds the course record from 1994. He also has won several other big races, including the General Clinton, the Classique, the Rush Canoe Derby, the Yukon River Quest, and the Texas Water Safari. Sal, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. It's nice to be with you because, like I was telling you before, it's pretty cold outside, so it's nice to be indoors at this moment.
Yeah, how cold is it there today?
Well, when I was working this morning on the log house, it was 40 below, and the saw was kind of mad at me for trying to start it, but it did start. So it was brisk, very brisk.
That's certainly cold. So have you seen that video before that we just watched?
Oh, numerous times I've seen that video, and it's a nice memento for myself to have, and for Serge also, I would imagine, to see that magical run we had.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that brings back some good memories. And, we'll have some time here to talk about some of those memorable races here in a bit. But so for the listeners, could you talk to us a bit about where you live, talk to us about your family, and a little bit about your upbringing?
Yeah, I live in North America's largest inland delta, freshwater inland delta. I'm basically in the heart of the delta itself. I'm near the town of Cumberland House, Saskatchewan. And so there's a lot of water around me, and there's water being with our families since we began living here. So it's a nice place, and all my family members were linked to the fur trade. They were York boatmen. They were voyageurs. They hauled furs and equipment for the fur industry. So they were there was a lot of history with us paddling and rowing and just being on the water. And I'm thankful that I'm part of that family that was, given that chance to do that. And here in this place we call Big Eddy is where I live. My wife and I, Renee, we have three grown children now. We homeschooled them here, and it's been a good experience to have our kids here grow up in this unique place, I guess, and paddling and boating has been in our family since, and for them too.
Yeah, awesome. So, Sal, growing up, what are some of the sports that you played, and how did you eventually, get into paddling competitively?
Well, in this particular delta, canoeing was a big part of how people got around. And so when, of course, naturally, when you were kids, we started canoeing and we played the other games that other kids play, I guess, like I played soccer, I played hockey. We were limited to, we never had a gymnasium in town, so we didn't have a gym for us to play all the other sports like basketball and whatever you need to have like a gymnasium. But and we also only went to, when I was going to school, I only went to grade 9 in the town of Cumberland House, and we had to move to another town, which is 100 miles away, and I went to school there. And that was the first time I was introduced to a gymnasium, and that's where I played basketball and ran cross country and all the sports that anybody had it now, so yeah, I got introduced to playing all those games.
Okay. And then how about competitive paddling? When did you first start racing?
Well, with the competitive paddling, it was they had a race in Flin Flon, Manitoba called the Canadian Gold Rush Canoe Derby. And it was a really big thing. It was similar to your race there in Grayling, where, people went to that race, you heard of it, you seen the guys do it. But in our case, we had to, my mom and dad, they took me when I was very young. I can hardly even remember. We had to take 2 days to paddle there, or my dad did, so we can go see the race. And it was run in July usually. So we paddled for 2 days to get to Flin Flon, so my parents can watch the race. And I remember very little of it because this was early 60s. And I remember my Uncle Roger in the race, and then just watching these guys, race. And I just thought, man, this is, wow, what a great thing. And that's how I got involved with the paddling from an early age. And everybody else that also lived here did the same thing, because we heard of the race all the time. And the race attracted the best North American paddlers at the time. So we seen people from Grayling, for example, and we seen people from Minnesota, Quebec, all the great places that have good paddlers, and we've seen them. So but my parents took me over there to see that first, and then that's how I got into it.
Now, with the name of that race, what was it, just paddling, or was there, I thought I read something about maybe some long portages or something along those lines?
Yeah, it was the Flin Flon Canoe Derby was it had 3 days of 3 days of racing, much similar to the Classique. And it incorporated all the things that you needed to be a good paddler. We had lake paddling, we had river paddling. You had to paddle through weeds, you had to paddle through marshes, so it was a great training ground for myself and other people when we went somewhere else, because you had to learn how to paddle through those different conditions, like big waves on the lake, and there's epic portages in it. The one day had the most portages. I think we ran like probably a total of 5 miles. So wow. It just had everything that you needed to be a good paddler, because you had all those disciplines that you had to learn. Yeah, it was a great race.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds, certainly interesting, but real challenging as well. Saul, before we go a ton further into paddling, maybe talk to us a little bit about how you make a living out where you live. I know we had talked a little bit before about some of the different things you do there to make a living, but could you talk to us a bit about that?
Yeah, we since we live in this unique delta, my father started a hunting and fishing lodge, and we've taken guests throughout North America and the world into our hunting camp, and we've taken them out and then and introduced them to hunting and also paddling. So we have this tourist business, or this place where we take people out to hunt and fish and paddle and other things, biking now, fat biking and so on. So it's been in my family for a long time, and I just took it over, and we've made our living here, our livelihood here. And we also are, we've trapped, we've fished, we've commercial fished. So everything that we've done here, and in this place here, we've created our own jobs so we can survive, I guess you could say. And I also am a log home builder, so I've been doing that also. And anything really to support my family.
Sure. Awesome. So I'd like to talk a bit about some of the different events that you've competed in over the years. Maybe start with, and it's probably hard for you to pick one out, but do you have a favorite race that you've competed in over the years?
Well, Flim Flon, the Gold Rush was a favorite race of mine because it just had all those disciplines, like I said, and Shawinigan, and of course the marathon. Those events were very hard to prepare for, and they were challenging as an athlete for me to try to prepare for those races, because I was always training by myself. I was living so far away from my partners that I had. So I had to, really teach myself how to be disciplined so I can race those big races that I attended with several of my different partners that I had.
Yeah. So,
and of course,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, of course, a really favorite race that I always think of was 1987, and I was racing with Bruce Barton.
What what race which race are you talking about in 1987? The marathon, or?
No, I was racing with Bruce in the Classique, and that kind of stands out in my mind as where we were racing the great Serge Corbin and his part, and the great Norman Manguy, and it was a really nice race, and we it was a second day. And I got to think of all these little things that happened before all that event. But anyway, so we were coming to the second day. There's a log boom, and there was these log booms in that race at that time where you had to take the right one, so you wouldn't get into logs and stuff. So anyway, we had Bruce and I had the lead, and we were coming into this the second day, going towards the boulevard where the running is done, where Christoph was talking about. It's quite a special boulevard to run in and so on. Anyway, just before we got there, we were on this boom, and Bruce decides to take the one side and Corbin takes the other side. Now we were together, side by side, split with that log boom. I'm looking on one side, I'm looking at Norman, and he's looking at Serge, and we're just speeding along. And now it's just us against them. And we're coming down, and finally we just inch away from them. And but what was special about it was we weren't on their wave and they weren't on our wave. It was just Bruce and I and Serge and Norman. And we were coming to this point where you live for those moments, right, where it's everything coming together. And it was quite special because, well, we just start inching away, and Bruce really made that decision for us to go there, because as you know, when you're together, you always want to get the other guy's wave so he doesn't drop you or you don't, so Bruce just said, okay, we're going on our own. We can do it. And it worked out. So that gave us the win, which was quite special to do that over there, where Serge was practically unbeatable at even now, but especially back then.
Yeah,
it was a great
course,
race.
right?
Yeah.
So speaking of some memorable races, one I certainly wanted to ask you about was your 1994 win with Serge in the marathon, because you guys set that course record. I mean, was that one of those days where everything just felt good and it was just a combination of everything came together at the right time?
Oh yeah, it was just a combination of everything coming together. But what I always remember about that race was really all the good guys that were in it at the time. They were in good shape. Everybody was in shape. I can remember, paddling with Rick Joy and John Hollins, and they were just going down that river like with reckless abandon, just putting everything on it, and we're barely hanging on, and then the next team would be Jeff and Bill, and it was just all those good teams that were there at that moment were all on top of their game, and I guess we were just part of that group of people that paddled that year to have really good runs, and we were just part of that whole year where, yeah, we had a good run, we had good water, everything just worked for everybody's favor, I think, but we just ended up finishing first. Like it was either one of those teams I think could have done it, but it just happened we were the guys for that year.
Yeah, awesome. So speaking of some of your different partners over the years, could you maybe talk to us a bit about a few of those partners, and maybe dive into what made them special as a paddler, or maybe even what made them a good fit to paddle with you.
I've had a lot of partners over the years, and but I first started with my brother-in-law, Steve Mackay, and he was really the first guy that I paddled with, and he was a stubborn paddler. He was a good paddler, and I really learned a lot from him, because we were both working up north. We were mining, we were working underground, and you know, after work we'd go out and paddle. And there was this it was up in Snow Lake, Manitoba, and there's lakes up there, and Steve would follow the shoreline, and we would go around that shoreline, and every little nook and cranny we had to go in and turn and so on. But having said that, back in the day, when you were a bowman, such as Steve was, you never really tried to help your sternman. It was that's just the way things were done back then. So there was no such a thing as calling for a draw, or like, hey, you know, like we're making this turn. It was a badge of honor if a bowman could make that boat turn the opposite way than that you're paddling, right? So I really learned how to paddle the stern with Steve, because his just mental toughness of going all those turns made me that much better as a sternman. And then as I went on, I paddled with Ron Williams, and Ron Williams was one of the first guys that I paddled with. That was he used to ski on our Canadian national ski team. So what he brought to me, what he was showing me, was really how to train at each discipline that you had. So as skiing, I guess you have to go through a certain way to train, a certain way to look at a race, and so on. And that's what he did. You know, Ron paid attention to all the small details that you need to pay attention to, because really I was never a really organized person myself, but I could learn things and pick stuff up. And Ron was that guy where he showed me, where he was really a professional athlete at the time that I met him. And the training we did was, you know, we did a lot of training together, but all those little things that we worked on paid off in the end as we paddled together. And then I was able to paddle with Everett Crozier. And Everett was really good too. He had the best equipment because he made the best boats. He was fun to be with. He very professional at the way we trained. We trained in different water, shallow water, deep water, sucky water. We knew all the different water depths how we had to paddle through that stuff. And Everett was a pleasure to paddle with, but he also was, you know, a national champion in the US for a long time. Him and Tim were, you know, the guys to beat every year. And so he taught me a lot of stuff, and he paid attention to his equipment. So yes, Everett was very good. And Everett was a super runner. You know, when you think of Everett, I always think, yeah, he was running a 10K in 28 minutes, you know, so he was fast. So even with all the work that he did, he was still quite very good to have as a partner, because he showed me all those different things. And then of course, Serge, You know, I paddle with Serge is just intensity. You know, you think of Serge, it's his intensity, his tempo that you have to match, and his just winning ways, really. You know, it was very good for me to have the chance to paddle with him, because I could see what kind of training to do, how intense it had to be, and then all the other stuff that came along with paddling with him what taught me a lot too. So yeah, it was really nice to watch him. You could see his technique. He was just flawless at his technique. I think he did everything right that you could do, because his record shows that. He was just a phenomenal paddler, and athlete. So it was really great to paddle with him. And then of course, Bruce Barton. Bruce and I had, Bruce really showed me the love of paddling, you know, just to enjoy the sport that you're in. So, and if you have joy in the sport that you're in, you're going to be able to learn more. And Bruce was Olympic athlete. You know, he was a kayaker, so he knew how to train. He's still very good. He knows all the equipment. He's organized. Everything that I'm not, he is, you know. So he was really a special friend to paddle with, because he just knew so much about canoeing, and it was just fun to be with him. And he has a nice family, and yeah, he was just all it was just all good with Bruce, and I'm really thankful that we had so many memorable experiences together in paddling, and we still do it today, because we go on these expeditions and we still have lots of fun paddling, because yeah, it's a good he was one of the better guys that I've paddled with. He's a great guy. And all the other people that I paddle with too you always learn something from somebody, you know. It doesn't matter who you paddle with. You always learn something. So, and that's really what all those partners did for me, was I was able to analyze what they were doing and trying to put it back to what would make me a better paddler. So I was very lucky, really, to paddle all those guys.
Wow, yeah, those right there, that's those are some cool stories. People are really going to enjoy hearing about all that. So one other race I wanted to ask you about is the Yukon River Quest. And so you competed in that race how many times?
The Yukon River Quest, I did it 3 times. The first time we did the 1,000-kilometer race, where you have to go through the Chilcote Pass and so on, and that was the much harder version of it. Now it's I think it's I always say it was one of the easier races to go in, because you're on the river, you're kind of by yourself most of the time, and then the river is so fast, it just keeps you moving. So it's just a matter of just staying in the boat, and you get there, even though you get tired and all that stuff. So that's the Yukon Quest. And one of my favorite part of the Yukon Quest was Dan Soleil. I paddled with him there, and we had a really nice race, and he happened to be he was nuclear physicist. So I ask him all kinds of questions because you have all kinds of time when you're in that race, you know, so just to kill the time and the pain that you're, and the tiredness that you're feeling. Yeah, so I asked him all kinds of questions, and yeah, he was fun to paddle with there.
So that must have taken at least a couple days, huh? Or how many days did it take to finish?
The first one was 4 days, and I think it was like 4 days, just over 4 days and an hour, I think. The first race we did, and that was kind of continuous paddling. So it was a long race. So what you do, you could do that. You could survive lots of races because you're going to get to the end eventually. And then you have to run the Chilkoot Pass, and I think that's like 37, 38 miles. You know, you have to run before you get to your canoe. So there's lots of mental training that helped in that race for sure.
Yeah, I imagine that made, you know, some of the you know, shorter races like the marathon or you know, the General Clinton or Classique, did it make those seem a little short even, or just different?
No, I think it's just each race has its uniqueness that you always have trouble with any race that you're in. You're always going to have some kind of downtime in each race that you're in, I think. And it's just each race provides that. So you're just going to have to work through each one. So I think all races to me are somewhat equal. And yeah, because you like for the marathon, for example, you could be in the best shape in your life and you go around and you won't even make Burton's landing. You know, you're sick, or something's going to go on, and the intensity of the pace that they do there is it's a hard race, as anybody knows that's been in it. So, and some years it might not be as hard, but you just never know, right? And I think that's for every race that you could say that.
Yeah. So I'd like to talk to you a bit about you know, the training that you've done over the years to prepare yourself for these events. I know when I reached out to you this summer, you know, you mentioned a few different things to me, but you know, it seemed like you certainly put in quite a few hours of paddling. But can you talk to us about some of your training that you did and still do?
Yes, it was. I guess what I did was I incorporated my work that I was doing here. Like, for example, I was a commercial fisherman in the winter, so you would have to chop holes in the ice. 4 feet of ice, 3 feet of ice, and you had a metal bar that you're chiseling the hole with. And anything I did, I tried to try to say, okay, this is how I would paddle, like boom, boom. So I tried to do it right. So all those things that I did through in my work, I tried to make it like I was training for the upcoming season. And it was lots of really endurance things that I did. And when you think of it now, it was just a real form of cross training. You did everything in a different way, but it was still training. And that's how I did it for my canoeing. And then when the canoeing came, then I put long hours. I like to put long hours because I always thought if I could, for example, if we're going to the race in Grayling, it's going to be anywhere from 14 to 18 hours that you're going to have to race. It depends what it's going to be. So I always thought, well, if I can go make a 25-hour run, I know I'm going to be okay for 18. You know, so I always try to add extra, so I know in my mind that I can do the distance. I try to do it with a lot of intensity when I trained. I tried to train hard. I guess it's when I listen to different people now, it just happened to work for me the way I was training with that long distance, a lot of intensity, and just hours of paddling that I put in to prepare myself for all these races, because I was always by myself most of the time here, where my partners were, say if I was paddling with Serge, they were, you know, they were in Quebec, so I didn't know what they were doing. I had to visualize what he was doing, so I had to do that in long runs. So okay, so I say, okay, you must be paddling this way, so I'll try paddling that way. I'll hard, fast strokes, slow strokes, you know, whatever technique that I could think of, I tried, so I could match different people, because I had to learn when I got there to paddle with somebody instantly, you know, like, so I did lots of things. I did lots of running, and I never went in a gymnasium. I never went to a gym. We didn't have one here, so that's why I incorporated the work that I was doing to try and mimic the paddling that I would be doing for the summer. So yeah, when I think about it, like for example, say if I was taking a moose hunter out, and we get a moose, he gets a moose, and we're you know 2 or 3 miles in the bush, and your client's out of shape, then you have to carry all the moose out yourself. So I did lots of those heavy lifting, heavy. I just, when I think about it today, I thought, man, was I nuts? You know, like, I cut a moose in 5 pieces. And when you look at it, a moose was probably, 300 pounds each for each piece or more. And I'm carrying out a couple miles. I can't even lift the thing. I have to push it up to a tree and then get under it. And once I get under it, I don't want to let it go, because I'm not going to be able to lift it up. So all that I did as a training for, for my canoeing. So, when you think about it now, like, nobody's going to do that. Nobody's that nuts, but that's what I did.
Yeah, kind of a natural way to get some strength training in, huh?
Yeah, and then also when you, since my family were York boat men, when I'm talking about a York boat had 10 guys that manned a York boat, and it almost looked like a Viking canoe, but you rowed, and they were my grandfathers. Their trips were up to 5,000 kilometers long.
Wow.
When you think of that, and when you're brought up with that, you think, I got to train long, because that's what my grandfathers did. And, so it was long. I guess I was born into that thinking of, you have to do really endurance things so you're prepared for any race that you're going to go into, so you don't, break down or whatever and stuff. That was my thinking, because that's what my family background was, right? So, and here in the Delta, we had to paddle. Like if I paddle home or to Cumberland House right now, it's a 5-hour paddle if I'm doing good.
Yeah. And
if I paddle back up, it's about 8-9 hours. So, anytime you went somewhere training, it was, you have to put lots of hours in. So that was my way of thinking, like, I got to do that. and so I can match all these people that I'm going to go race with.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So
Yeah.
in order for you've done so well at so many of these races, you know, over the years, you must have come up with some mental strategies to help you get through those tough moments in the race. Could you talk to us a bit about maybe some of the mental strategies that you use to, you know, stay focused and engaged in the race?
Well, my main, when I was always paddling with different people, I always thought, well, when I start this job that I'm in at this moment, I gotta finish it. So whatever it takes, if you're hurting and it's not feeling that great, you work through those feelings that until they get better. And they always seem to, you know, you can endure a lot of stuff that's not that pleasant, you know, so those were, I always thought that way. And then I also thought my training that I did before is you know, I did a 25-hour paddle, so I should be able to make grayling, you know, and when I guess when I go back also into my history, when I used to work with my dad as a commercial fisherman we fished for sturgeon, and my job was to paddle. And so from an early age, I had to do the job properly, I guess you could say, because I was working with my dad. I had to paddle the right way. He was the one that really gave me the base to how to pull the paddle. So yeah, so all those little things, you just have this memory that helps you. You just dig back into my memory. I just dig back into my memory bank and think, okay, yeah, that's how I felt on that race, but I'm going to get over it if I'm tired or something, or yeah, I'm feeling good. I got to pay attention to my partner. I got to see where his hands are. I got to see where his elbows are. So I'm always thinking of not so much myself, but of my partner. So that takes you off your how you're going to feel. So I'm just thinking of, say, if I'm paddling with Bruce, okay, I got to look at his hands. I got to look at where his elbow was. I got to make sure my timing is right. You know, I got to do all those things. So if I was paddling with Serge, I got to do that same thing. You know, if I'm paddling with Steve or Everett, you know, I got to do all that stuff, you know, so it just takes away from how I'm feeling at that moment and just try and concentrate on my partner. So we have a good run. So it always end up, you had good runs with all these guys I was with, right?
Yeah. So, so that's some good technical tips right there, as far as you know, trying to match your partner and whatnot. But what would be some other techniques that you found over the years really work for you in the boat and paddling, as far as your you know, just your paddling technique?
Well, like I was saying, my father was the first that started to teach me how to paddle, and my father never raced, but he always watched other people race, and so he was always looking at where they were reaching forward, where the paddle ended up, stuff like that. So he was able to show me that through the years. When I think about it now, you know, at the time you think it's your father, he's not, you don't do nothing, but you know, now I know he's the one that really was showing me how to pull that paddle. And you know, just with my father, he used to haul freight with big canoes, and when they were going up big rivers with lots of rapids, they had to pole. So poling up the river with just poles with a big weight and being able to move your boat up the channel, up the against the current, was really the basis of how I think about how I should train and how I should pull the paddle, where you, like Christoph was saying, you got to get over it, you know, like you got to get over your paddle. And then once you're over it, you got to go back to the next stroke, right? So when you're poling, it's similar. You got to get a good anchor and you get over the pole and it lifts the boat. And those were the basis of my way of thinking on how to paddle technically right. I was thinking.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about some of the boats that you've owned over the years, and maybe talk to us about what's your favorite boat that you've paddled over the years.
Well, I guess my favorite boat is my C1, because it I have a Safari Texas boat, and that's really my favorite boat because my friend Everett built it for me, and that's a little fact there that I'll always that's why it's my favorite boat. And it's a boat that I can paddle by myself with, and you can almost mimic any boat that you're going to get in with a partner with. So it's narrow in the front, then you can just have this natural stroke going always. And that C1 Texas Safari boat is quite special boat for me. And the other boats that I've raced before are like the V1 or these older boats that I raced in were nice, you know. But I don't think it's just any one particular boat, because each person's going to have a different one that he likes. So and you know, like that's how I think anyway with the equipment. So as long as I have my C1, I think I'm able to paddle with anybody, because then, you know, it's just a good training boat for me to have.
Yeah. So over the years, you've paddled for so long. Have you ever had any injuries that you've had to overcome?
Yes, injuries are, I guess injuries are happen to everybody. And what I want to say about injuries is I know when I look at it now, when I was racing with Serge and I had a bad injury here. I had two herniated discs, and I'm trying to paddle through those herniated discs was somehow I managed, but it's not a good way to do it. So if you have an injury, I think a guy should treat it first, get it better, so you don't have to, you know, it changes your stroke, because you can't pull the same way when you were uninjured, right? Mm-hmm. So you favor one side if it's whatever injury you have. So try and get it better. In fact, through my injury, I met my good friend Blaine White. He's a physiotherapist. He really put me back together with some of the exercises that he got me to do. And then he's a sports physiotherapist in Saskatchewan here, and he manages hockey guys. So he knew what kind of program to have me do, and that's really helped. But so I'm thankful to Blaine for that. And just like I said, if you have an injury, just take the time to heal it and get it better first, and then continue, because it changes your technique when you're injured. So sometimes it just doesn't, you're not the same, right? So you have to look at those injuries and say, this isn't worth it. I'll get better first. And then usually now I think that, man, I wish I would have done that. I would have been further ahead, because you're just always working with a deficit, because you start feeling good, then you'll injure it, and then you injure it. Feel good, injure it, so and I guess most people that have injuries can attest to that, I guess. And yeah, so just get it better, and it'll get better. So like, just take the time to treat that injury. And like I said, with Blaine, I was able to explain to him what I was doing with the paddling, what muscles I was using. I got him the video and stuff, and he watched it. And then of course he's a physiotherapist. He knows how your muscles work. So then he designed a program for me, and that's kind of been keeping me still active today. So I'm happy. Blaine, a good physiotherapist, will help you a lot.
Yeah, that's very informative. I think as athletes, sometimes we always try to push through those small injuries, but I agree with you. Sometimes it's more important to take the rest and get better before you get back at it.
Yeah, I'm like I like your other guests. I like Pete Mead was saying, I think the same stuff. Just work your way through all those little details, and then and same with Christoph, he said the same stuff, right? You're going to just work those details out for you, so it's going to work for you, right? Those yeah, they said good words that when I was listening to them, I learned something from those two guys that I was listening to.
So, nowadays there's quite a bit of talk about, what people do for, nutrition and sleep and recovery, things like that. What, is there anything special that you do from a nutrition standpoint, or maybe during some of those long races? Did you have any, tricks with nutrition that helped you stay energized the whole race?
Well, I guess I'm like a wolf, man. You just eat whatever's on the table. You just wolf it down. That's kind of how I've been. But having said that, also when I trained here, when I go on these long training runs, I would never take anything. I wouldn't eat. I would drink. Because I can drink from I would drink water, and that's all I would usually have. So I guess I trained myself, and my body type, I guess, was adapted to that, where sometimes I didn't really need anything, like when I trained. So I think that's helped me, maybe, I think. And but otherwise, I'm like a wolf. Like I said, I eat anything, but when I was training, I never took food with me, because we didn't have any here. I couldn't go to a store and get fresh stuff. If you had stuff, you saved it for another time. So I just went through the process of training without all the foods that people use now. I've never taken supplements. I've never done any of that stuff. I've hardly drank any alcohol, stuff like that. I've just always just ate whatever was on the table, whatever we had. So and so in that aspect, I never really had a special diet, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So, Sal, do you plan on doing any more racing in the near future?
Yeah, I'd like to race again. I'm kind of preparing now, and I like racing with my son now. So if we can get a chance to race again, I'd like to race with Real, and I'm even thinking of maybe I'd like to do the marathon again. You know, it's one of my special races that I like to go to, and if I can do that again, I'm hoping maybe, you know, you never know, maybe this year, who knows, you know, if with COVID and all that stuff going on, maybe it'll be better and I can go down there and race again, you know, it'd be great. And I'm into fat bike racing now. I'm trying to do a lot of that here. So anything that requires you to go past your limit, I kind of like doing that, you know, and seeing where I end up, you know. It's a good challenge to, and it just keeps you healthy and going, right?
Yeah. Well, I know everyone would love to see you certainly at the marathon. That'd be neat if you were able to come this year.
Yeah, it would. I'm hoping. You never know. You know, I'm trying to train, and I'm feeling all right now. So I'm hoping, you know, you never know. You know, we'll see. And I never asked anybody yet, but you know, you just never know. I'd like to go there and see all the good friends that I've made through the years there. That's the best part of that race, is you see all the people that come up to you and talk to you, and that you've talked to before. They're friendly. It's really a nice place to go. Any race really, I guess, but in particular grailing is because it's such a long event that and unique that I've met a lot of people through the years there that I want to see again, you know, and just talk to them, and such as yourself, for example. You know, it'd be nice to meet you in person and talk a little more about paddling and so on. You know, so yeah.
Awesome. Well, you know, that's about all I have. Is there anything else that you would like to share for that you think would be useful for the paddling community?
Yeah, you know, I remember you were saying when you were talking to Pete and Christoph what we could do for our canoeing people. You know, I think stuff like we're doing now to talk more about paddling and trying to get more. How do you say that? We're doing the same thing. So if we're coaching something, we can get involved with an event, or we can coach people the same way Christoph is coaching. So like, for example, he was talking about kayaking. There's a certain way that you sit in the kayak. A coach is going to tell you exactly the same thing he's going to tell the next guy. You know, that's kind of been our trouble with canoeing, because we have different models of canoes that we sit in. Some sit high, some sit low. So when it comes to technique, stuff changes, you know, with the way you're pulling the paddle, if you're sitting low or high, you know. So I think if we can come to a understanding with all of us to maybe come more together with our coaching, we would be much better off to you know, for somebody that's starting out now, you know, and so we can tell them the same stuff, or, you know, similar, I guess, anyway, for sure. And yeah, so that would be really interesting to see if we can get together that way, so we can be coaching the same way. You know, for example, I have a coaching camp here at my place every May when the ice is gone, and I try to bring other coaches in so you can hear what they're saying, because sometimes if I'm saying it, it's not quite what they're getting at. So yeah, so I guess that would be the main thing, is for us to say the same thing. So when you start improving it, you speed along faster than you're trying to work by yourself, because that's kind of how I had to do it when I come from the 60s, where people didn't share anything with you. So you had to observe, you had to look, you had to see what they were doing. So you did lots of learning by yourself, and people just didn't want to share their secrets or the way they trained even with you. So when I thought, well, if somebody ever asks me, I'm going to tell them all I know, so it doesn't take so long, because then we'll have more people, in the paddling community. And then, because I always thought, if somebody's better than you, you're going to have to do everything to get to his level. So when I first started out, I thought, well, if I want to be good at this, I got to go where the best guys are. And that was how I learned more, because I went over there where the best guys were, and then you can see them. You can see where their hands are, how they're sitting, what they're eating. You can see them training. You can see all those things that you need to see to help you with your interest in the sport. So yeah, if we can do that, I think I'm really grateful to you, Dave, for even having this program here, because there's a few of us now that you're going to talk to that it might trigger somebody's learning if we say something that, make sure you're looking at the hands from underneath you, like those little tips I always try to share. Look at the other, if you're a sternman, put your hand out as you're going to take the stroke, look underneath so you can see his hand. So when he moves his hand, you move yours, and your timing is going to be pretty good. It's going to be probably better than if you were looking at his, if you were looking at his bottom hand. It's just not going to work the same. So just those little things that you need to do help, on all those, when you think about it, they really help, and that's going to help you enjoy the sport more, right? It won't take you as long to get good at something that you enjoy. Yeah.
Oh, that's a lot of good.
I'll probably think of one.
Yeah, I mean, it's to be honest, it definitely is part of my intent with doing this program. Is to be able to share some learning and have myself learn, but then also for others. I come from the sport of triathlon as far as an adult, and in that sport there's quite a bit of educational opportunities out there to learn about that sport, and I do think that would be something nice if the paddling community, and there certainly there are things out there, but it would be nice to have to be able to compile, like you're talking about, to help with people getting into the sport and their learning curve. Like you said, if they can experience a little bit of success early on, they're more likely to enjoy it.
Yeah, I know, like, for example, a kayak, the flatwater community, they always have clubs. So they have the boats there, they have the coaches there. So you don't really have to bring your own equipment there. And I guess that's been our downfall, is we've always had to purchase our own stuff to go in the sport. So, and then sometimes maybe if you bought the wrong canoe or something that didn't work for you, and you have to use that canoe and it's not quite working for you, it takes a little while, right? So you get discouraged sometimes, I think. And so all those things that I think we can learn from that flatwater system is where, if we could get a few more clubs involved, or people to start clubs, and that's kind of how you can bring more young people in there, and coaches. So we're telling people the same thing on how to move a canoe, like maybe, for example, I'll say, I think I've told you this, make sure when you're taking the stroke, you feel the lift of the canoe. So that might not mean anything. That might not mean anything to you right away, but eventually I think it will. So if we can fast track it better, if we can get together and use the right language for people to learn all these little things that takes a long time for somebody to learn, right? And if we can get people together and talk about these things. I wish we would have done that when I was, right in the prime of our my racing career. Then it would have been more relevant. When you sometimes when you tell people now, it's like, oh, I've been out of the sport for a long time, even though I'm still paddling. It's just, it's not the same if you heard it from Andy Treble or a Steve Lajoie, because they're the current guys that are the fastest, or a Pete Mead, and these guys are what's carrying our sport now, because they're the guys that are fast now. So we look up to these guys because they're the guys that we try to emulate to get better, right? But if we had a better language to not just say it was Pete that said this or Steve, because sometimes you can't paddle a certain way, right? It's very hard to paddle like Andy because it's Andy's stroke, but if you break it down, you will know what he's doing, and then you can do it in a different way. So so that's what I think anyway. I don't know if I'm all wrong about it, but that's when you're by yourself here and thinking, you think a lot of how to teach somebody how to get better at whatever it is, biking, paddling, whatever, that's how I've always thought.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree with you. Saul, thanks so much for your time. This was, your stories and just the things that you shared are going to be of interest to a lot of people. They're really going to enjoy this. So thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you too. And thanks for the opportunity to talk and to share some of the important memories of my paddling career. And I just, of course, all of this is not possible unless you have your family behind you. And in my case, Renee and my children were the catalyst for me succeeding. And it's like that for any family that in a sport, you need that group of people behind you to help you get good at what you're doing, right? You need that help, and I certainly had that help here all my life, really. From my own personal family to from my mom and dad to my personal family. It's they're the people that help you the most. They know your weaknesses. They can help you through your weaknesses and so on, and you can share the good stuff with them when it happens. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, no, certainly family is a big part of anyone who's able to be successful, whether it's in sports or otherwise. So well, good deal. Well, thanks again for all your time, and stay in touch, okay?
Yeah, and then and thanks to you again, and all those people in Grayling that and in Michigan that are great friends of mine and good paddlers. Jeff Coca, Bill Toronto, Bruce Barton, you name all those guys that I still paddle with today. They're good role models to learn from. Bruce is great, and so is Jeff, and they're all the best guys you can learn from. And people in Michigan are very lucky to have these guys that I mentioned, and there's more. The younger generation is just stepping up, I think, and you'll have a powerhouse of paddlers from that Michigan, and you've always had. So yeah, it's been happy. I've been always happy to go to Michigan because you've always had all the greats from there, and yeah, thank you, Dave. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yeah, some of those guys you're mentioning will certainly be guys I'll be trying to have, also on the show here. So thanks again. Take care.
Yeah, you bet. Bye.